Patient number 73 exhibits little to no improvement. Patient number 74 exhibits little to no improvement. Wait, that's a mistake. I haven't examined patient 74 yet. I delete the notation and hook the vital status machine up to patient 74. The display light up with numbers. Her spleen is enlarged, so I turn her very carefully when I perform my exam. When I shine a light into her eyes, she doesn't respond. Patient number 74 exhibits little to no improvement. Move on to the next patient. I'm checking your stats again, I tell him. Nothing to worry about. It's been weeks and none of the patients are getting better. The rashes along the infected nerves turn into boils, which would be extremely painful if the still cold feel anything. We don't think they can, but we're not certain. Only a few of us are left who haven't gotten sick. I'm still a physic, but because we're so shorthand, I spend most of my time changing the patient's nutrition bags and catheter bags, monitoring the stats and performing physical exams, and then I sleep for a few hours and do it all again. They don't bring in new patients very often anymore, except for those who are already here working with when they got sick. We don't have room for anyone else because they still don't go home. I use to pride myself on how fast we got patients into recovery. Now my satisfaction comes from keeping as many of them here as long as possible because these days, if a patient leaves, it means they're dead. Once I'm finished with this round, I'll get to rest, I think, and I'll be able to fall asleep quickly. I'm exhausted. If I didn't know better, I'd think I'm coming down with the mutated plague myself. But this is the same old weariness I've felt for days. Most of the workers in the medical center have fatigued out by now, and those who have the small red marks are the expected among those of us in the rising initially made immune. The virologist theory appears to be right. If someone was lucky enough to get exposed to the earlier plague of the live virus, they're now immune and they carry red marks on their backs. The Rising hasn't told the general public about the marks because our leaders are worried about what will happen. And they've been trying to figure out a cure for the mutation. It's too much for one pilot to handle. Once again, I've been lucky. The least I can do is stick around. It's the people like Lee who I really admire. They know they're not immune, but they stay anyway so they can help the patients. I move through the rest of the patients, all the way to the last bed. Patient 100 draws in ragged, wet breaths. I try not to think too much about how the cure might have caused the mutation, or about where my family or Cassia might be. I already failed them. I can't fail these 100. I don't see Lee in the courtyard when I'm finished, so I break protocol and look in the sleep room. She's not there either. She wouldn't have run away. So where is she? As I pass the darkened cafeteria, I see a flicker of light. The door is on. Who could be inside? If it's the pilot speaking to us. Usually when he does, they have us watch on one of the larger screens. I open the door to the cafeteria and see Lee silhouetted against the port. When I get a little closer, I see that she's going through the 100 paintings. I'm about to say something, but I stop myself and watch her for a second. I've never seen anyone look at paintings the way she does. She leans forward. She takes a few steps back. Then she pulls up the painting, and I hear her draw her breath, and she puts her hands up right on the screen. She stays there looking so long that I clear my throat. Lee rolls around, and I can barely see her face in the reflected light from the port. Still having trouble sleeping, I ask? Yes, she says. This is the best remedy I've found. I try to picture the scenes again in my mind when I'm laying back down. You're taking your time with them, I say, trying to joke with her. You'd think you hadn't seen the paintings before. For a moment, I feel like she's about to tell me something. Then, not this one, she says, moving aside so I can see the screen. It's number 97, I say. The painting shows a girl in a white dress and a lot of light and water. I suppose I didn't notice it until now, Lee says, and her voice sounds final, like the door shutting tight. I don't know what I said wrong. For some reason, I'm desperate to open that door back up. I talk to everyone here, all the patient and medic and nurse. But Lee's different. She and I worked together before we came in. What do you like about it? I asked, trying to get her to keep talking. I like how you can't tell if she's in the water or on the shore. But what's she doing? I've never been able to figure it out. She's fishing, Lee says. That's a net she's holding. Has she caught anything? I ask, looking closer. It's hard to say, Lee tells me. So that's why you like it, I say, remembering Lee's story about the fish and how it came back to the river in Cadmus because of the fish. Yes, Lee says. Because of this, she touches a little patch of white on the top of the picture. Is it a boat? The reflection of the sun? And here, she says, pointing to the darker spot in the painting. We don't know what's casting these shadows. There are things going on outside the edges. It leaves you in a sense of something you can't see. I think I understand, like the pilot. I say, no, she says. In an instant, we hear screaming and calling out. Fighter ship is whirls overhead. What's going on out there? Lee asks. I think it's the same as usual, I tell her. People outside the barricade wanting to come in. The orange light of the bonfires on the other side of the walls look eerie, but it isn't new. I don't know how much longer the officers can hold them. They wouldn't want in if they knew what it looked like, she says. None of my eyes have adjusted to the light. I can see that Lee's fatigue is actual pain. Her face is drawn looks and her words, usually so light, sound heavy. She's getting sick. Lee, I say, I almost reach out and take her by the elbow to guide her from the cafeteria, but I'm not sure how she'd feel about the gesture. She holds my gaze for a moment, then slowly she turns away from me and lifts up her shirt. Red lines run down her back. You don't have to say it, she says. She tucks her shirt back in and turns around. I already know. We should get you hooked up to one of the nutrient bags, I say, right now. Thoughts race through my mind. You shouldn't have stayed. You should have left like the others did until we knew we had something that worked. I don't want to lie down, Lee says. Come with me, I tell her, and this time I do take her arm. I feel the warmth of her skin through her sleeve. Where are you going? She asks me. To the courtyard, I say. You can sit on the bench for a while. I go and look for a lined nutrient bag. This way, she won't have to be inside when she goes down. She can stay outside as long as possible. She looks at me with her exhausted, beautiful eyes. Hurry, she says. I don't want to be alone when it happens. When I return with the equipment, Lee waits in the courtyard. With her shoulders slumped in exhaustion, it's strange to see her with less than perfect posture. She holds out her arm, and I slide the needle in. The fluid begins to drip, and I sit down next to her, holding the bag high so that the line keeps running. Tell me a story, she says. I need to hear something. Which one of the 100 would you like? I ask. I remember most of them. I hear a faint trace of surprise in her voice under the fatigue. Don't you know anything else? I pause. Not really. The Rising hasn't had time to give us new stories. It's not like I know how to create. I just work with what I have. Yes, I say, trying to think of something. Then I burrow from my own life. About a year ago, back in the society, when there was a boy who was in love with a girl. He watched her for a long time. He hoped she'd be his match. Then she was, and he was happy. That's all, Lee asks. That's all, I say, too short. Lee begins to laugh for a moment, and it sounds like herself. It's you, she says. It's obvious. That's no story. I laugh too. Sorry, I say. I'm not very good at this. But you love your match, Lee says, no longer laughing. I know that about you. You know that about me. Yes, I say. She looks at me. The liquid drops into the line. I know an old story about people who can't be matched, she says. He's an aberration. She was a citizen and a pilot. It was the first of the vanishing. The vanishing? I ask. Some people inside society wanted to get out, Lee says. or wanted to get their children out. There were pilots who would fly away in exchange for other things. I've never heard of anything like it. I say, it happened. Lee says, I saw it. Some of those parents would trade anything, risk everything, because they thought sending their children away would be the best to keep them safe. But where would they take them? I asked. Into enemy territory? That doesn't make much sense. They take them to the edge of enemy territory, Lee says, places called the Stone Villages. After that, it was up to the people to decide whether they'd stay in the villages or cross enemy territory to find places unknown as the other lands. No one who went to the other lands ever came back. I don't understand it, I say. How would sending your children out in the middle of nowhere, even closer to enemy, be safer than staying in society? Perhaps they knew about the plague, Lee says, but obviously your parents didn't feel that way. Neither did mine. She looks at me. You almost sound like you're defending this society. I'm not, I say. I know, she says. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to tell you history. I meant to tell you a story. I'm ready, I say. I'm listening. The story then. She lifts her arm and looks at the liquid running in. This pilot loved the man, but she was obligated at home, ones that she couldn't break. The obligations to her leaders too. If she left, too many people would suffer. She flew the man she loved all the way to the other lands, which no one had done before. What happened after that, I asked. She was shot down by the enemy on her way back, Lee says. She never got to tell people what she had seen in the other lands, but she had saved the one she loved. She knew that no matter what else happened. In the silence that followed her story, she leans against me. I don't think she even knows what she's doing. She's going down. Do you think you could do that? She asks. Fly? I say, maybe. No, she says. Do you think you could let someone go if you thought it was best for them? No, I say. I'd have to know it was best for them. She nods, as if expected my answer. Almost anyone could do that, she says, but if you didn't know and you only believed. She doesn't know if it's true, but she wants it to be. Those stories would never have been one of the 100, she says. It's a border story, the kind of thing that can only happen out there. She was a pilot once. Is that where her husband is? Did she fly out and now she's going down? Is that the story true, any of it? I've never heard of the other lands, I say. You have, she says, and I shake my head. Yes, she said, challenging me. Even if you never heard the name, you had known they existed. The world can only be provinces, and it isn't flat like the society maps. How would the sun work, and the moon, and the stars? Didn't you look up? Didn't you notice that they changed? Yes, I say. And you didn't think about why that might be? My face burned. Of course, Lee says, her voice quiet. Why would they teach you? You were meant to be an official from the very beginning. It's not in the Society of 100 science lessons. How did you know? I asked. My father taught me, she says. There's a lot I'd like to ask her. What was her father like? What color did she wear when she was matched? Why did she find out all this before? And now there's not enough time for a little thing. They're not a society sympathizer, I say, insisted. I've always known, but you weren't rising at the beginning. I'm not rising or society, she says. The fluid drips into her arm slowly. It can't keep pace with what's happening to her. Why don't you believe in the rising, I ask. Or the pilot? I don't know, she says. I wish I could. What do you believe? I ask. My father also taught me that the earth is a giant stone, she says, rolling and turning through the sky. And we're all in it together. Do you believe that? Why don't we fall off? I ask. We couldn't if we tried, she says. There's something that holds us here. So the world is moving under our feet right now. I say, yes, but I don't feel it. You will, she says. Someday you will lie down and hold very still. She looks at me. We both realize what she said, still. I was hoping to see him again before this happened, she says. I almost said, I'm here, but I look at her and I know it's not going to be enough, because I'm not who she wants. I've seen someone look at me the best way before. Not through me, exactly, but beyond to someone else. I was hoping, she says, that he'd find me. After she's still, I find the stretcher left behind by the medics and lie her down and hang up the bag. One of the head medics comes past. We don't have room in this wing, he says. She's one of ours, I tell him. We're making room. He has a red mark, too, so he doesn't hesitate to bend down and look closely at her. Recognition crosses his face. Lee, he says. One of the best. The two of you worked together even before the plague, didn't you? Yes, I tell him. The medic's face sympathetic. Feels like that was in a whole different world, doesn't it? He says. Yes, I say. It does. I feel strangely detached, like I'm watching myself take care of Lee. It's just my exhaustion, but I wonder if this is what it feels like to be still. Their bodies stay in one place, but can their minds go somewhere else? Maybe part of Lee is floating around the medical center and I'm going to all the places she knew. She in the patient's room, overseeing their care. She's in the courtyard, breathing in the night air. She at the port looking at the paintings of the girl fishing. Or maybe she left the medical center behind and is gone to find him, so they can be together, even now. I bring Lee into the room, with others. There's 101 of them now, all staring up at the ceiling or off to the side. You're due to sleep now, the head physic tells me from the port. I will in a minute, I say. Let me get her settled. I call for one of the medics to come over and help me perform the physical exam. She's all right so far, the medic says. Nothing enlarged and her blood pressure is decent. She reaches out and touches my hand before she leaves. I'm sorry, she says. I look into Lee's staring up eyes. I've talked to lots of other patients, but I'm not sure what to say to her. I'm sorry, I say, echoing the medic's words to me. It's not enough. I can't do anything for Lee. And then I got an idea, and before I can talk myself out of it, I take off down the hall for the cafeteria where Lee was looking at the paintings. Please have paper, please have paper. I say to the port, and if I'm talking to patients who can't answer, why not talk to ports too? The port listens and prints out all of the 100 paintings which I entered the command, gather up all those pages full of color and light, and take them with me. This is what I did for Cassia when she left me. I tried to give her something I knew she loved and take with her. Most of the other workers think I'm crazy, but one of the nurses agrees with my idea might help. If nothing else, it'll give me something different to look at, she says. And she finds adhesive tape and circle thread in supply closet and helps me hang the pictures from the ceiling above the patients. The port paper deteriorates pretty fast, I say, so we'll have to print them out every few days. And we should rotate them through. We don't want the patients getting sick of any one painting, I say, trying to survey what we've done. It would be better if we had new pictures. Don't want the patients to think that they're back in society. Who would make some? We could make some, another nurse said eagerly. I've always missed drawing, and the way we did in first school. What would you use? I asked. We don't have any paints. I'll think of something, she says. Haven't you always wanted the chance? No, I say. I think it's surprised her too. So I smile and take the edge off. I wonder if I'd be a different kind of person, and the kind Lee and Cassia could fall in love with if I had. The head physic is going to pull you from your next shift if you don't go to the sleep room now, the nurse tells me. I know, I say. I heard him on the port. But there's someone I'd have to speak to before I go. I'm sorry, I tell Lee. The words are as inadequate as they were the first time, so I try again. They'll find a cure, don't you think? I point at the paintings hanging above her. There's going to be some light in the corner somewhere. I wouldn't have seen the light she hadn't pointed out, but once she did, it became impossible to ignore. On my way to the sleep room, the door to the courtyard opens and someone in black steps out into the hall, blocking my way. I stop in my tracks. It's a girl I've seen before, but I'm exhausted. Mine won't let me place exactly where. Regardless, I know she doesn't belong here in the lockdown wing. That physic doesn't tell me anyone knew was coming in. And even if they did, they'd have to come through the main door. Oh God, the girl says. There you are. I've been looking for you. How did you get in here? I ask. I flew, she says, and then she smiles, and I know exactly who she is, Indy. The girl who brought the cures in with Kai once before. I might have also have some key codes for the doors, she says. You shouldn't be here, I tell her. This place is full of people who are sick. I know, she says. But you're not, are you? No, I say, I'm not sick. I need you to come with me, she says. Now. No, I say. It doesn't make any sense. I'm a physic here. I can't leave all this still, and certainly I can't leave Lee. I reach for the mini port, but I'm here to take you to Cassia, Indy says. And I drop my hand. She's telling the truth. Could Cassia really be close by somewhere? Then fear rushes over me. Is she in the medical center? I ask. Is she sick? Oh no, Indy says. She's fine. She's outside on the ship. All these months I wanted to see Cassia again. And now I might have the chance, but I can't do it. There are too many still. And one of them is Lee. I'm sorry, I tell Indy. I have to take care of the patients here. And you've been exposed to the mutation now. You shouldn't leave. You need to go into quarantine. She sighs. I thought you might be hard to convince. So I'm supposed to tell you that if you come with me, you'll be able to help him work on the cure. What are you talking about? I ask. The pilot, of course, she says. So no matter-of-factly that I believe her. The pilot wants me to help work on the cure. He knows you have first-hand knowledge of the mutated plague, and he says he needs you. I look back down the hallway. Now, Andy says, he needs you now. There's no time to go say goodbye. Her voice is honest and unflinching. Can any of them hear you anyway? I don't know, I say. You trust the pilot? Indy says, yes. But have you ever met him? No, I say. But you have. Yes, Indy says. She enters the code and pushes open the door. It's almost morning now. And you're right to believe in him.